Good Saturday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for December the 3rd. Today we are reading together in Proverbs 16. I appreciate so much you taking the time to tune into this reading. I hope they'll be a blessing to you as we read through these 33 wise sentence sayings of Solomon. And then we'll look at my top 3 for today. And if you recognize some, if as we're reading through, there's something that really stands out to you, please feel free to note that in the comment section. Say, hey, the verse number such and such. I've seen this at play in my life before, and I've seen it being really good wisdom to follow. Or if there's something else that stands out to you, please feel free to leave that in the comment section as well. Again, thanks for tuning in. Let's go ahead and get the text up on the screen for us today. Again, we're looking at Proverbs 16. Proverbs 16, verse number 1, the reflections of the heart belong to mankind, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. Verse number 2, all a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs motives. Commit your activities to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has prepared everything for his purpose, even the wicked for the day of disaster. Everyone with a proud heart is detestable to the Lord. Be assured he will not go unpunished. Iniquity is atoned for by loyalty and faithfulness. And one turns from evil by the fear of the Lord. When a person's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Better a little with righteousness than great income with injustice. A person's heart plans his way, but the Lord determines his steps. God's verdict is on the lips of a king. His mouth should not give an unfair judgment. Honest balances and scales are the Lord's. All the weights in the bag are his concern. Wicked behavior is detestable to kings, since a throne is established through righteousness. Righteous lips are a king's delight, and he loves one who speaks honestly. A king's fury is a messenger of death, but a wise person appeases it. When a king's face lights up, there is life. His favor is like a cloud with spring rain. Get wisdom, how much better it is than gold, and get understanding. It is preferable to silver. Excuse me. The highway of the upright avoids evil. The one who guards his way protects his life. Pride, that's probably a pretty well-known proverb. This Proverbs 16, verse 18. Pride comes before destruction, and an arrogant spirit before a fall. Better to be lowly of spirit with the humble than to divide plunder with the proud. The one who understands a matter finds success, and the one who trusts in the Lord will be happy. Anyone with a wise heart is called discerning, and pleasant speech increases learning. Insight is a fountain of life for its possessor, but the discipline of fools is folly. The heart of a wise person instructs his mouth. It adds learning to his speech. Pleasant words are a honeycomb, sweet to the taste and health to the body. There's a way that seems right to a person, but its end is the way of death. A worker's appetite works for him because his hunger urges him on. A worthless person digs up evil, and his speech is like a scorching fire. A contrary person spreads conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. A violent person lures his neighbor, leading him on a path that is not good. The one who narrows his eyes is planning deceptions. The one who compresses his lips brings about evil. Gray hair is a glorious crown. It is found in the way of righteousness. Patience is better than power, and controlling one's emotions than capturing a city. And finally, verse 33, the lot is cast into the lap, but its very decision is from the Lord. And that is Proverbs 16. All right, so my number 1 for today is back up to verse number 2. All a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs motives. The Lord weighs motives. Everything that we might do, of course, I would think that we would probably make the best decisions, in at least in our minds, that's going to have the best outcome. But what is important to the Lord, the text says, is the motivations for the decisions that we make. What motivates us in this life? Is our motivation centered upon just making everything as good as it can be for ourselves? Is our motivation based in bringing glory to God? Is our motivation based upon what is best for others? The question is, what are we focused on? Are we focused on God, others, or self? Those motivations really matter to God. And the reality is that two people can make the exact same decision to do the exact same thing, and yet the motivations be different. And that's what's difficult about living in this life, is that, again, if you're judging two people on their actions could be the exact same, but their motivations could be the exact opposite. So, for example, two people walking down a road, and they see an old lady fall down and trip. Well, both people could go to help that person. One person could do it purely because they actually want to help the old lady. Another person could do the exact same thing because they're wanting to look good for those who might see. So there and here we see two people doing the exact same thing, different motivations, and that's what the Lord sees. So the Lord sees beyond just what we do. The Lord sees beyond what is just on the outside. The Lord is able to see what is on the inside. He sees our motivations. He weighs our motivations. Therefore, we need to make sure our motivations are proper and well. That's my number one for today. My number two for today is actually a double. It's going to be verse number 8 and verse number 19. Verse number 8 and verse number 19. Verse number 8 says, "Better a little with righteousness than great income with injustice." In verse 19, better to be lowly of spirit with the humble than to divide plunder among the proud. So many people judge themselves, and they weigh their validity, they weigh how successful they are based just upon what they have, based just upon success, based upon the amount of assets that they can accrue in this life. And yet these two texts, verses 19 and verse 8 and verse 19, both show us that that's not what really matters. It doesn't matter about how much we have. It doesn't matter about having the most. What matters is whether or not we are righteous and whether or not we are lowly in spirit and humble. Because the reality is there are many people who are very wealthy who have obtained that wealth through injustice. They have obtained that wealth through pride and through gathering spoils with those who are wicked. So whenever we judge somebody, again, we're going back to kind of what we just talked about a second ago with the motives. You can't just judge people on the outside just by looking at them and say, oh, that's a very successful person. Well, they might be successful by worldly terms, but the question is, are they successful on God's terms? Are they humble, spiritually minded people? Are they righteous in their behavior? Or are they simply wealthy because they're greedy and they're arrogant and they've cheated people in order to achieve what they have? So think about that. Think about what is most important. Is it most important to be rich, or is it most important to be righteous? Better to be poor and righteous. I'll change this a little bit. So better to be poor and righteous than rich and unjust. That's basically what we see here in verse number 8, changing the terms just a little bit. And that's what I want to take away. My number 2 today: it's better to be poor and righteous before God than to be rich by worldly standards and be an unjust person in his eyes. That's my number 2. All right, my number 3 for today is verse number 28. Verse 28. A contrary person spreads conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. If we remember going back to chapter 6 of verse 19, talking about the 6 things the Lord hates, 7 being detestable to him. The last verse is a lying witness who gives false testimony, one who stirs up trouble among brothers. That's what we have here. We have people here who are just contrarians. They're not happy unless they are embroiled in some sort of conflict, in some sort of just conflict between people. They don't like peace. Have you ever met anybody like that? I've met people like that. That they're not happy unless there is some sort of controversy, unless there is some sort of conflict, unless somebody is unhappy, they are not happy. And what a sad way to live. What a sad way to live, to be fueled by people being mad at each other, and people being in arguments with one another, people being in conflict with one another. That's not good. So contrary person spreads conflict, and the gossip separates close friends. Working on a lesson to look at gossip sometime in the next few weeks, to just consider this issue that is mentioned, that's explicitly mentioned in a number of texts in the New Testament. Also, we see that in the Proverbs here. Just speaking about things that we have no business speaking about, sharing information that isn't ours to share. That causes problems. It causes conflict. It causes disagreement and difficulty among friends. This text just reminds me that I need to be the type of person who does everything to promote peace and unity among myself and others, not to promote conflict and separating of close friends. That's my number 3 for today. So number 1, going back to verse number 2, all a person's ways seem right to him, but the Lord weighs motives. My number 2 is a 2-parter. Better a little with righteousness than great income with injustice, and better to be lowly of spirit with the humble than to divide plunder with the proud. And then number 3 is verse 28. A contrary person spreads conflict, and a gossip separates close friends. Those are my top 3 for today. That stood out to me as I read this text with you and reading it beforehand. And if you have anything that stands out to you, please feel free again to leave those in the comment section. Again, thanks for tuning in on this Saturday. Hope you have a great rest of your Saturday. We're looking forward to gathering tomorrow for our Bible classes at worship assemblies at 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Looking forward to seeing you there. Take care, and God bless.